How to customize your workspace. Let's find out how you can customize your workspace in all sorts of ways. The easiest thing to do is change the overall shade of Photoshop. We can do that by going to Edit, Preferences, Interface. If you're on a Mac, you can use Command-K for that. Here we have 4 choices, 2 dark ones and 2 light ones. Those who are familiar with CS5 will surely be more drawn to the first or second option, but I have to say the darkest one is my favourite. In the same window, we have another interesting option you may want to come back to later on, the full screen colour. Let me show you what this means first. Let's close this window. Now we'll press F twice to go into full screen mode. This is really helpful when you want to see your canvas without any distractions from Photoshop's interfaces. Notice we have the white part, which is of course the canvas, and a dark part that's currently black. That's what we can change. This might come in handy in a situation where we have our canvas nearly black and we need a different background color to provide adequate contrast. So for that we can go to Edit, Preferences, Interfaces again, and click on this drop-down next to Full Screen. As you can see, we have a few options already there, but we can also choose a custom color. Let me do that now. OK. Now going into full screen mode again. As you can see, the color has now changed. Let me quickly change that back, since in most cases black is just fine. Another customization option is this background that surrounds our canvas. If you right-click it, you'll see the same options as before. And you can see things are pretty straightforward. Keep in mind though that these are 2 separate things. The first option I showed you changes the background in full screen mode, while this one changes it in the normal viewing mode. My advice is to keep them to their default settings, but if you have a project that requires a different contrasting color, you can now come back to this lecture. Moving on, we'll sort our panels because this is quite important. To get started, we first have to check out the workspaces Photoshop has built in. To check those out, simply go to the top right and click on this drop-down. As you can see, Photoshop has some nice presets depending on what you want to do. We have Essentials, 3D, Motion, Painting, Photography, Typography, and a few other controls. This means that you can select one of these and be done with your customization. Thing is though, it's best you know how to adjust things so you can get a perfect fit for your work. So let's take it step by step. First, I'll choose Essentials, and you immediately see new panels. Now, you may not see the exact same thing in your Photoshop version, but don't worry, everything I'm about to tell you still applies. I'm also going to hit Reset Essentials, just to make sure we're starting from step 1. Okay, great. First, let's make sure we have all our tools on the left side in one column. To do that, go to the top left and hit on this very small icon. I'll toggle it so you can see the difference. Keeping it in one column is better because you see more of the canvas. I know it's not a big difference, but every bit helps. If you click and hold, you can actually detach this panel. This applies to absolutely every panel in Photoshop, and it's quite interesting because you get to place them literally wherever you want. Right now it's currently floating around, but I can drag it and dock it on the right side of my screen. When I hover over this region, do you see this line appearing? This means we can dock it there. So if we let go of our left mouse click, this panel will now be attached to this section. Don't like it there? Detach it and move it more to the right. Simple enough. Let's put it back though. Drag it out of that place and move it to the left side of the screen. While you can do all sorts of arrangements, going with the basics is the right way to go, at least for starters. On the right side, we have all sorts of panels opened and lined up. We have 3 main panels, but notice they have tabs too. So at the top, I can switch between colors and swatches by simply clicking on the inactive tab. I can also resize it so I can see more of it. If you go near the bottom, you'll see your cursor will change. Take your time to find it. Just move your cursor slowly and you'll get it. Once you see it, click and drag. This makes it easy to allocate more space to your important panels. In this case, I don't use swatches at all, so let me close it. How do I do that? Well, each panel has a very tiny icon in the top right. If you click it, you'll see a huge menu appear. Don't be scared, simply look for Close. Press it and the whole thing goes away. So now, we're left with colour. If we don't like its positioning, we can grab it and drag it out of there. As you can see, once I remove it from the right side, the other panel expands. Now with this detached tab, we can place it absolutely wherever we want it. We can even leave it floating around, but I highly discourage you to do that. Everything should be docked, that's my suggestion. Here I'll close it like I did with the swatches panel. So look for this small icon and click it. Press close and it will go away. Now we have 3 other panels to close, and I'm getting tired, so let's close them all at once. Click on the small icon and press on the Close tab group. And there you go, all of them went away. Now we have this huge layers panel, and I actually like to keep it like that because I work with a lot of layers. More about that later. I also want to open up a few other panels, but I want to keep my layers panel as is. To do that, I'll go to Window, Character, and you'll see I have another small section to the left of my layers panel where a new button has appeared. Basically, each button here holds a panel, but unless you click it, they're all collapsed. Same rules apply here too. You can detach and you can reattach. You can expand this area by dragging it to the left, but make sure you have this mouse cursor first. This is helpful in case you can't recognize the panels based on their icon alone. As you can see, if we expand it, we get to read their names, which is quite helpful for starters. Finally, we can also expand our layers panel, and this is helpful if we have very long names. Here, this is not the case, but let me write something so that you can see what I mean. So if you want to read the whole thing, you might want to expand it like this. One thing before we end is that although you can open a lot of panels and make them fairly big, the problem is your canvas area will shrink. Keep in mind that's the road we're driving on, that's the star, and that deserves your full attention. All these panels are here for supporting purposes, so make sure you keep them fairly small so they won't eat up your canvas space. This applies even though you may have a big monitor. Finally, say we want to save our workspace. Maybe there's another person that uses Photoshop for different reasons and you don't want them messing things up. Well, it's simple. We can go to the top right and hit New Workspace. A window will appear asking you what name this workspace should have. I'll call it Testing. Now, if someone messes everything up, expanding things, closing panels, opening others, we can simply go to Reset Testing and we can revert back to our settings. So now when there's kids over and they want to go to town, you can let them do their thing without worries. Of course, you can delete a workspace, but first you have to switch over to a new one. Now with the other workspace selected, you can go to Delete Workspace and this window will appear. Select Testing from the drop-down and you're golden. That's how you can customize your workspace in Photoshop. Please practice by creating at least 3 different workspaces and saving them. Try and make them as different as possible and explore all the layouts you can achieve by moving panels around. Have fun!